give a special thanks to Eaton House, the home of the Second Curriculum podcast. This is honestly one of my favorite places to get work done in the city. It's centrally located downtown in Washington, D.C., but as you can see, man, it's a great vibe. The aesthetic is pleasing, and overall, it provides a great place to get work done. So if you're looking for a workspace, check out Eaton House. What's up, family, and welcome to the Second Curriculum podcast. This is a new podcast, a new platform where educators, scholars, and emerging leaders can talk transparently about their insights on best practices in higher education. From sharing best practices to motivational anecdotes, our distinguished guests will join us in sharing openly about their research, unique career experiences, inspiring life lessons, and professional perspectives. I'm your host, Nate McGill, a second-year doctoral student in the Higher Education Leadership and Policy Studies program at Howard University, and I'm personally committed to inspiring, educating, and assisting those to become the best version of themselves through education. Now today is a very special day. It's our pilot episode, and we have a very special guest, future Dr. Grady Wright. What's going on?
You got it, baby. I'm trying to get to the DR, baby.
Grady is a second-year PhD student in the Higher Education Leadership and Policy program at Howard as well. And over the last few years or so, we really became brothers. He currently serves as the Director of Strategic Partnership and Government Relations at the University of the District of Columbia, and is conducting research in presidential transitions at public HBCUs and annual giving trends. Additionally, he is an entrepreneur who specializes in organization development and capacity building. So it's a pleasure to have you here. I know you're going to be able to give our supporters a lot of insight and a lot of perspective. Specifically for this conversation today, it's going to be centered around higher education, the state of higher education right now, visionary leadership in this sector of higher ed, and then also inclusive excellence within capacity building. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. I want you to tell us, Grady, a little bit more about your professional and academic background and kind of what made you embark on this journey of higher ed leadership or leadership in this higher ed sector.
Yeah, man. So first, let me say how excited I am to be here. You know, these moments are surreal. You know, coming into the program, this wasn't something that was initially on my radar when you think about career goals and long-term plans. But I'm really proud of you for the work that you're doing, like launching this podcast. I know we talked about this for a while, like, you know, you got nervous or whatever, but it's really just a conversation. It's a really opportunity for us to just kind of really share our experiences, our real lived experiences, coming back to that qualitative research. You know, the things that we've experienced and how others can potentially benefit from those. When we think about my career and how I got here, it takes me back to high school and the value and the importance of exposure. When I was in high school, I got exposed to a program called Michigan Youth and Government. High school teacher, her name was Lisa Tompkins. She had just graduated from her master's from Michigan State. She beelined back to my high school. Come to find out that she had graduated from my high school, you know, a few years earlier, and she wanted to come back home to teach and impart wisdom and training and development to young talent. She introduced me and a couple other students to this program called Michigan Youth and Government, and it really was my introduction into public policy. The program gave me an opportunity to go to our state capitol, understand the legislative process from every aspect of what it takes to actually move legislation through the process in the state legislature. So we had the opportunity to, you know, students in the program to hold each type of role, whether it was a page, whether it was a lobbyist, whether it was speaker of the house, all the multiple roles to really understand how the legislative process works, and then more specifically, how does legislation move through the process. From that moment on, I was hooked, because in that moment, from that experience, I learned that it's because of public policy that we are able to or not to do certain things within the parameters of our country when it comes to advancement. So when I think about my career, I went to school in South Florida, started down, finished up in Miami, Florida at my alma mater, Florida Memorial University. Go Lions. You know what I mean? We'll roar some more.
All right, I'll let you have it.
Yeah, let me have it.
Let you have it. Got you.
But Florida Memorial continued to add another layer of passion around public policy, becoming a student leader working in student leadership positions, being a student athlete, understanding what it's like to work on teams, understanding what it's like to work with people from different walks of life with different perspectives, not knowing that all these things will kind of become a huge professional gumbo for me, giving me all these different experiences, these different ingredients that I would need to make a perfect dish that, quite frankly, is still being developed to this day. Started my career in corporate America, had the opportunity to go on and work for Office Depot. First as an intern, being able to leverage that internship into full-time employment, which really gave me a real hard and fast experience into what it means to work in corporate America. Now, everybody wants to go to corporate America because they want to make money, they want the big title, and all that stuff, but they don't really understand what they're really getting themselves into. And this was an experience that really opened up that opportunity for me to really see how the sausage was really made. Interesting enough, during my first year with the company, we went through a merger, a major Fortune 100 merger, acquired another competing competitor, and I was working at the corporate office in Boca, and this was the first time I got to see how the beast really works. Our corporate office was initially 7, and on one Friday, it went from 700 people to 250 people in a single day.
Major layoffs.
Bro, I seen people walking out in tears with boxes, people that worked 20, 30, 40 years with this company, made this company multi-millions of dollars, and because they got a new president, this merger happened, two companies coming together, the change had to happen, and the company was streamlining to make sure that they can increase the profit margin. And that's when I realized, like, you know what, because of policy, that type of merger was able to take place, and the impact that it would have, the residual impact on people's lives, it really opened my eyes even further. So from Office Depot, I went and did some consulting for 3 years for Burger King Corporation, helping them kind of restructure the company. Then from there, I went and actually got to work in my field. By this time, I had graduated with my undergrad, double major in political science and public administration. I had an emphasis in foreign policy because I thought I wanted to do foreign policy work. But having had that corporate experience, coupled with some other small experiences here and there, I was able to go on and go to the legislature. Went to the legislature for the state of Florida and got to work in committees, got to work for a state representative, got to work for a state senator. And really it opened me up because that was a time when Marco Rubio was the Speaker of the House, so I got to see a lot of the way that he approached policy, the way that the lobbying and how Florida played a very particular role, unique role in the way that legislation moved in and around and through our country, and the impact that that legislative body had on the way that other pieces of legislation would go through either their assemblies or their legislatures. So from there, and actually during that process, I was able to work on a really special project that I'm really proud of, to stand up a nonprofit called the Miami Children's Initiative. It's an initiative that's still going on right now. It's actually it's an offshoot of the Harlem Children's Zone. Now, a lot of people know who Jeffrey Kennedy is and what he did with creating the Harlem Children's Zone, you know, making sure that he could stand up this beautiful nonprofit focused on Harlem, really providing resources and support for that particular community. He did an amazing job raising funds. What we had to do, we had to create what in traditional terms would be considered a P3, public-private partnership. So with the Miami Children's Initiative, what we were able to do was able to bring the legislator, local, state supports, and municipal supports together to create this nonprofit to support this particular community, which is Liberty City in Miami, Florida. You know, I want to say a few years ago, we celebrated more than 10 years of existence. Very proud to have help write the legislation to make that happen in the state house, and then be able to transition from state government down to work for the county commissioner and the actual commissioner. Shout out to Audrey Edmondson, who was my boss during that time, and helped her usher that through the local process to make sure that he could stand up. And it comes with a whole bunch of nuance and politics and all that kind of stuff. But I'm happy to say, man, that I've been able to be blessed to have a career that's allowed me to really be hands-on, seeing and understanding what the process looks like. And it always comes back to policy. It always comes back to policy. So, when you think about my career, it's been very complex and very diverse. I think it's like a lot like who we are as people. When we first met, we always talked about how our backgrounds are. And it's because none of us are monolithic. Like, we're not just one person. Like,
Sure.
I'm not just a PhD student. I'm a dad. I'm a man of God. I'm a Q dog. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Right.
They're from the east side.
Hey.
Gotta boss up. So,
Gotta
so it's a lot. That's how my career has been. It's been a complex, a beautiful gumbo of multiple experiences that come together to create a beautiful dish, and it's still being developed to this day.
So why higher ed then? I mean, you went to policy, you worked your way up.
Yeah.
You HBCU alum, future two-time HBCU alum, and now you're in the HELPS program, which is, curating leaders to lead in different spaces in higher ed. So, like, what kind of influences brought you to that point? And kind of why did you lean into that versus, not in leadership? It's a lot of positions in higher ed that are not in leadership positions.
Yeah, so it's interesting, man, and I'm not gonna get emotional. When I was in middle school, I'm from the east side, bro. I keep telling you, I'm from the east side of Detroit.
Right.
It was not easy to navigate the streets of the D. And unfortunately, my personal story is I fell behind a grade from my brother. I got identical to my brother, So for 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th grade, I was behind my brother. So the embarrassment, the shame, the feeling like I wasn't smart enough to be on track, to stay disciplined enough, to be able to, one, transition from middle school to high school with my brother, and then still always having this thing in the back of my mind. It's like, damn, is it true there's a smart twin and a dumb twin? And that shit rocked me. So, having navigated my way, during my high school years to be able to, I stepped away from student government, stopped playing basketball, stopped running track, any extracurricular thing that I was doing, I stepped away from it because I committed to myself that I want to be able to graduate high school with my twin brother. And not just for the sake of graduating, but to prove to myself that indeed there is no smart twin or no dumb twin, that it is about application, right? My brother was applying what he was learning and I was not. So creating that discipline, and I was able to graduate on time, graduate with a great GPA, and then from there, going into college, I thought about myself. I said, initially I wanted to go to law school and become a lawyer because it comes back to that policy piece that I thought I wanted to run for office. But after spending some time with my mentor, getting exposure to the research experience and the whole research process, and then the value of research, that's when I knew that I needed to be in an industry that would value, respect, and make space for the lived experience that I've had from corporate America to the private sector, to my own shortcomings in my own personal life, and be able to take that and concretize that into something that's tangible. And that tangible thing is research. Being able to say, let me share my own personal story, couple that with the experiences of other professionals and other scholars, and put that in a very comprehensive study that other people can take and see. And like Dr. Palmer always tells us, transferability. So I knew that my lived experience was transferable not only to just other black men, but all other people that may have fallen short on their walk and on their journey in whatever other way, and possibly it could be of inspiration. So in my role now, I'm really proud to have the opportunity to serve in a leadership role where my voice is heard because they value my lived experience, and then they also appreciate and respect my expertise as a professional. With the diverse background that I bring a very unique perspective to the work that we do in higher ed. Because most people, we talk about this all the time. Most people see the academy as just the pedagogy, just the teaching and learning. They forget about the business side. They forget about the administration, the many from an operational perspective, from dollars to be able to operate. How do we attract talent, both you know, workforce talent as well as faculty talent, right? Because that's needed, right? You know, do we have the infrastructure that we need to be able to support all these programs and these ideas and these initiatives that we want to do? Those things take time, resources, energy, focus, and resources to make them happen. So I'm happy to be in a position where I get to create the framework to show how it can be done, and also go out with the charge to identify the right partners to make sure that, you know, for my institution, that we are connecting with people that, you know, are mission aligned and focus on the same things that we are.
Which is super important.
That's the crux of the whole matter, brother. Yep. So what about you, man? Like, I know, you know, we share that alike.
Yeah.
You know, I'm from the east side of the D, but you right down the block.
Yeah, I'm a Midwest guy as well. I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. And I think I'll take it a little step further as far as how I got into higher ed leadership and kind of what influenced me. So my grandparents on my father's side actually met at Kentucky State University. And it really was because my grandmother couldn't go to UK. Like, she's from Lexington, but because of the racial environment at that time, she could only go and get her education and further her education at Kentucky State. So that's where she met my grandfather. And as you know, as we learn about the history of higher ed, the history of HBCUs, and the importance of what they are to the black community, I think I'm a real example of that in real life. So they met at Kentucky State. I think both graduated with degrees in education. Could only find jobs in education, moved to Cincinnati, and you know, that's kind of where one side of my family is from. My father and my mother met at Tennessee State University. So that kind of, as somebody growing up, you know, in the HBCU household, it was nothing. I mean, Ohio State was cool, but
in ATSU,
my parents were in TSU around the house, big blue. You know what I'm saying? And I love that. So, you know, I was in high school. I mean, I was a homecoming early, so that's something that always influenced me. I remember they always talking about how college was really, you know, the best time of their lives. So that always resonated with me. And I'm a former student athlete, so originally coming out of high school, I didn't go to an HBCU. I went to the University of Indianapolis, and realized quickly during homecoming week, like, man, this is not the place for me. I didn't even know it was homecoming.
Y'all didn't have a pep rally?
We didn't have nothing, man. They had some golf courts that pulled on a football field, you know, the different dorms, and that was cool.
It wasn't cool, clearly.
But I know,
because you had to leave. You're like, I got to get out of here, bro.
I know what it's like at an HBCU homecoming. You know what I'm saying? And I had a void for that. So I think experiencing that, transitioning, playing football at Tennessee State University, you know, experiencing the classics, me and mentors. Shout out to Dr. Grant Winrow, who has been in my life ever since I met him at Tennessee State University. Really showed me the importance of how administrators can play a pivotal role in student lives, but also the culture and the duality that HBCUs have. And I think in a professional sense, as I get back into kind of why I got into it. Like I said, I was a former student athlete. I got into higher ed based on helping student athletes get jobs, careers, and student athlete development, but made that transition in my most recent stop at Howard University to work with all students across campus. And I was the associate director for the Career Center there, which was great. And I think being able to be in that aspect as a practitioner, but then also being able to be a student in the health program my first year. I can remember being in Dr. Williams' class, the university president's class, and going to the HBCU fly-in, talking to Miss McMahon with all the presidents in the room. I'm like, this is where I need to be, because these are the individuals. They all have unique missions, visions as presidents. Every school is different, but they're all here advocating on behalf and strategizing on behalf of the black community. And that's something I feel very strong about.
I'll say this before we move on. I think there's a beautiful synergy and connection between our stories, and I'm pretty sure other black men's stories as well, because, you know, for me, the through line, the connector is exposure. Right? You know, from exposing you to the TSU's culture, or if it was my high school teacher, Lisa, connecting me and exposing me to a program. Those connections, those moments of exposure really have a real impact and influence on how we choose which path we take for career, right? Because initially, like I told you, I wanted to go and be a lawyer. Like, I wanted to be a corporate attorney. But through my own personal lived experience and through that exposure, like you know, it led me to a different path, and the same thing for you. And it's just amazing for us to be able to have at this time to kind of share our story and see the connection and overlap, even in, you know, in both of our stories.
And to give back. Like at the end of the day, once we graduate, we plan to be leaders.
Absolutely.
In certain capacities. It's going to give back and influence the black community in one way or another.
Absolutely.
So now with that being said though, if anybody, all the practitioners out in higher ed are going to understand the statement of saying that, like right now, higher ed is in a very unique position. There's a lot of questioning about the value of education,
Yes, sir.
what that looks like, you know, the relevance of everything. But from my perspective, as I look in the future and I look at big gaps or opportunities for HBC or higher ed institutions, specifically for me, you know, my interest in HBCUs, I have to point out the AI integration of higher ed. I have to commend all of the universities who are integrating AI into their curriculum, into their systems. However, I know it can be a key watering. So one thing I want to highlight is a report that was produced by UNCF, I think it was earlier this year, that noted that 96% of HBCU faculty and 98% of students at HBCUs are using AI platforms. So to me, that obviously shows that this is something that is you know, is used, is relevant, is prevalent on the campuses on a day-to-day. Also, what I want to note is that in the same report, it mentioned that 80% of faculty and 87% of administrators said that they need some type of specific role in training. So although we're using these platforms, these programs right now, and because it's really very early in the integration, there needs to be more guidelines, more policy. So as somebody who is interested in AI integration to HBCUs, AI integration to higher ed, those are some of my questions. What is the policy that's going to be enforced? Is there a universal policy that we use? Are there different guardrails that are going to be specific and parameters that are going to be specific to universities based on their missions, based on how they use them? And also, how is this going to impact the whole education system, whether it be to the students, how they're learning, are they critically thinking, are they not critically thinking, are they able to learn more, are their study skills kind of depleting in a sense? And also I'm very interested, because I feel that HBCUs have a commitment to the community as black people or as the black community, but also the neighboring community, surrounding community. Like what are those impacts? So I know, shout out to TSU, Dr. Melton down in Tennessee State, they have the Smart Center where they host workshops for different community members where they're really giving back in a sense. I know Morgan State has a Center for Equitable Artificial Intelligence. So now they're trying to regulate the policies, figure out the biases, how does that work, how can you regulate that. North Carolina A&T, which I thought was very interesting, they have a center on trustworthiness in AI, but also they have a BS in AI. So that is something that if I look at gaps, opportunities, that's something I will look at as a professional in this space. I also think about the workforce development. How are we as universities, maybe specifically HBCUs, making sure our students are ready for the new evolving workforce with this AI. So we were able to do some insight and look at and review the future job report that was produced by the World Economic Forum earlier in 2025. And it mentioned that 60% of employers are expecting to transform their business by 2030. And a lot of that is due to the integration of AI. So the biggest positions, or I would say fastest growing jobs, they noted would be big data specialists, fintech engineers, AI and machine learning specialists, and software and application developers. So what are our administrators doing at HBCUs to make sure that our students are ready to fulfill these roles? So their education is really valuable. You know, it's really important. It's really separating them from the pack, as we know HBCUs do, and how they can kind of deliver education and kind of support students. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I mean, it's so much we can talk about on that. I'll let you take it from there. What you think, like, the biggest gaps would be, opportunities?
That's really good, man. I'm going to address the gaps and opportunities, but I think it's important to be conscious of as we start transitioning to this integration of OpenAI and generative AI. You made a point kind of just a moment ago. It's really about adaptability, right?
On a university standpoint?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because HBCUs in and of ourselves, we've always been really, really great at adaptability. And now with this new technology coming in and being introduced highly, very competitively,
for sure,
at such a rapid pace, what is helping us understand is we need to rethink, talk about opportunity. What is our new business model for the way that we deliver education, right? The way that we allow students to cultivate, right? Both pedagogy, right? Teaching and learning. How do we integrate AI into our pedagogy in a responsible way that's ethical and it's not harmful, right? Where there is a benefit. I think it's likened to, and this is my perspective, it is likened to the introduction of the internet, you know?
Sure.
When I was growing up, the internet was just being introduced, right? And it was this whole concept, the same way that it is now about AI. It's like people don't think anymore. Well, it's not that people don't think anymore. It's about efficiency, right? It's about how do we create ways to be more efficient so that we can do more in smaller amounts of time, or maximize these great amounts of time for being able to have stronger, more consistent, reliable outputs. So you asked a question about policy, career opportunities. I think what we're going to see is there's going to be a number of different policies that are going to evolve from these discussions around AI, and as the technology continues to evolve, whether it's in higher ed, whether it's in usage, whether it's in teaching, whether it's in design, whether it's in writing. Something as simple as, how do you write your dissertation? How do we run this through a particular platform? So, it's a much more complex conversation about policy development than what it is. And I don't want to minimize that. That's a discussion that will require a lot of different voices, a lot of different perspectives. But I know for sure HBCUs will definitely be at the forefront of playing a role specifically into how AI should be introduced and managed when it comes to higher education, and our ability to be able to adopt it, be able to bring on that technology and use it to help advance our mission and our students and their focuses.
Which would be unique though, because we as HBCU leaders, educators, alumni, that's a different demographic of student that you are recruiting. You think about a student at Coppin State, they have a different mission than the student at Howard University.
Absolutely.
And that's okay. So I just wonder what that is going to, how that's going to unfold.
And it's not going away, right?
It's not going to go away.
So think about the internet, right? It's not going away. Like, if anything, you need to be able to get comfortable with it and be able to adapt. One thing that I'm proud of and what we're doing at the University of the District of Columbia, our Center for Advanced Learning, we have an amazing staff of folks that are really helping our faculty and our staff really understand how complex these different platforms are, right? What all can be done from a teaching and learning perspective to make sure that we can introduce it in a responsible way in the classroom, exposing our students to it, helping them realize how much more they could get out of the learning experience by employing these tools like AI. So I love it. I think it's something that is, we're seeing it so much now be relied on in industry, and this is one thing that comes back to what we talked about earlier, about higher education seeing itself also from the lens of industry partner and the industry competitor from a business standpoint, where we are able to use and employ the tools that industry does to advance our mission and our revenue.
That's a good meet.
Right, it is the avenue revenue stream for our companies, because we can't rely on state funding and appropriations from the federal government. So how can we leverage AI for us create proprietary ideas that we can sell as licensing and take to market and generate revenue? You know about that bag, baby.
There's a lot of grants here right now.
Yes, sir.
So my next question though is more about, we talked about the workforce and what that's going to look like over the next, it's about to be 26, so the next 4 or 5 years. But tell me more about your perspective on impactful trends that leaders should be paying attention to in higher ed. What are some things that come to mind when you think about the trends of the future?
Not requiring the the traditional bachelor's degree to be employed.
Okay.
So that means that we have to create a new value proposition in education, right? Which is where we see workforce development being heavy focus and being given a lot of attention and emphasis now. Because one, it's very expensive to go to school.
Certainly.
The price of education is going up. Student debt is crazy out of control. And we no longer can rely on federal appropriations to be able to subsidize education, right? So, shout out to Mackenzie Scott and Blue Meridian for the support that they're providing to a number of HBCUs. But then we have to think about how do we switch our model, the way that we deliver education to allow us to be able to scale it, not for the second half of the 21st century, but for the first half of the 22nd century. Mm-hmm. So we have to be light years ahead with our thinking to figure out how do we continue to create relevance and value, not just for our industry education, but for market. Do we create value for our students to graduate and go into the marketplace and be able to earn at a level that makes that value of spending that dollar on an education valuable for that student?
And I can see that being the case. I even know I have a colleague, a friend of mine, who works in DCPS. Mm-hmm. And this summer we had an opportunity to we took him out to West Virginia and camped, and we got to know him a little bit more, but a lot of those students' aspiration was not to college. It was more trade school.
Absolutely.
And I think part of it was probably the financial aspect of it, but also I think that I mentioned in the second question was more about the value of education.
Yeah.
So what I really wanted to add to it, and I was kind of spot on to what you mentioned as far as trend goes, and it's the changing demographic of students who are entering higher ed. So there was the article that was written by the Higher Ed Dive, and then it's entitled "You Can't Create More 18-Year-Olds." And basically in the article, which I thought was interesting, but it's very important to this conversation, is that there is a demographic cliff, and in 2025 was the peak of 18-year-olds. And now we're going to slowly see a trickle effect, or potentially could see a trickle effect in what the traditional student enrollment looks like. And we already know higher ed is dealing with enrollment issues. So my question and my thought process as somebody who is consulting with leaders, who is trying to provide best practices, is trying to figure out where we can, first of all, let me go back. My idea would be to figure out how we can continue to attract these students who are questioning the value of this education, retaining the ones that we currently have in the pipeline, who are currently learning and who have an appetite to learn in that way. But I also think about finding ways that we can maybe recruit non-traditional students. So my viewpoint is really maybe working professionals that might be our age, who will need to have to reskill, upskill with this new AI integration. Yeah. So that is the trend that I definitely want to pay attention to over the next few years. And I hope administrators are looking at different ways that they can recruit different talent to their pipelines. I also wanted to throw out there, shout out to my girl Jody, our cohort member, our international scholar. And that is really with the new administration, how there are fewer international students enrolling in U.S. institutions. I think that could be a lost market. I think that international perspectives are very valuable in higher education, in general, but specifically in education when you think about research that's being done with similar communities across the world. You think about leadership perspectives, you think about economics that can be similar in different countries. I think about professors who come in who are helping us educate our students on a day-to-day basis. That is slowly trickling due to this current administration. So I would advise, or something I would think of as a leader in the higher ed, is to figure out how we can kind of go around that and see if that's a hidden market that we can tap into.
So I think, to that hidden market piece, I think one of the things that we are actively doing right now at UDC is, especially from a recruitment and when you say looking at how we attract a different student because of that clip, is what are our current market and regional needs, right? When you understand, like for us, when we understand what the needs of the District of Columbia are, what their residents need, what does the local administration focus? What are they focusing on? Where are they putting resources and dollars? Then as the state institution, our focus is to adjust. This comes back to that model piece. It's our responsibility to adjust our focus and our strategy for how we attract and retain students. One, to be able to first provide education at an affordable cost that is accessible and that also meets the needs of the local residents. Because when you think about, expanding opportunities for international students, I'll give you a prime example. If the University of the District of Columbia, if we provided scholarships for international students, which is a great thing.
Sure.
But we only are providing scholarships for those students, and the students that are from Southeast or Northeast don't have those same scholarship opportunities, then are we doing ourselves a disservice? And are we staying true to our mission, which is to be the university for the residents of the District of Columbia? Now that doesn't mean that we exclude international students, but it's important for us, as for all HBCUs specifically, to understand what is our mission, and are we staying true to our mission even when we have to adapt and adjust to all the tailwinds and headwinds of the marketplace. But how do we keep our feet firm on the ground to make sure that we're fulfilling our mission, and how do we do that in a very responsible way so that we don't lose track trying to chase every wind that's tossed here to and fro. And that's what's complicated about leadership, is right, you have to take all these things, put all these things on the table and look at the pros and cons of them all, because yes, you do need international students to bring that perspective and that viewpoint, that global perspective to your university, but you don't need to do it in a way where it's harmful. It further perpetuates this Western concept of, I know where to go and find talent, and it's only over there.
Sure.
Right? We need to be responsible and cultivate the talent that's right here at our doorstep, and also create space to bring in that new perspective. And to me, that is something that we're really doing in a very responsible and a really dynamic way at UDC. Shout out to Dr. Eddington. We're doing our thing over there.
Shout out to Dr. Eddington.
Yeah.
Because I want to stay here for a little second, right?
Yeah.
And I say that because I think what you said is important.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's specific to the university.
Yep.
This is a university in the city to serve the local community.
Mm-hmm.
But as I'm reading, it says that with the decrease of international students to the United States, it can be a $1 billion impact. Now, this is not solely higher ed. This is just the United States economic that's going to take a dive because of international students not making that transition. As we think about universities, I think about the economic impact to them and how those tuition dollars are not going to be as high as it would be if they were admitting them at a certain rate. In this article, it talks a lot about how that is broken down, and it says that most of international students, they pay full tuition. So as I think about trying to staff student professionals resources, that's why I say I think that could be an untapped market, because, and I don't want to say we only looking at them for money, because they add so much to the perspective and add so much to what our universities hold. Mm-hmm. But I also see that they could help almost maybe fund some domestic students, depending on how many international students are admitted and how they're taken care of.
So I think that's one thing that we're really doing. We're doing this amazing program right now at UDC, where because we deal with that in real time,
right, every
day. Our administration, they're consistently looking at and weighing the options of how do we balance and walk this tightrope, right? Because international students, they do have to come prepared financially to be able to cover the full cost.
Right.
But for us, we have a responsibility to take care of home first.
Sure.
It's like, we grew up in the hood, so think about, your mom would say, listen to me, you better make sure my house clean before you go down the street trying to clean somebody else's house up, right? And it doesn't mean that you can't go down there and help out, but we need to make sure we take care of home first. Right, so one of the things that we're doing at UDC, which makes us one of the best options for cost per value in the country, because not only if you graduate from high school in DC, even though the district will give you resources to go somewhere else, you're still going to more than likely come back, and I don't know the statistics, I'll get those for you, come back to UDC to graduate because of the cost, the accessibility, and the quality of education. We got some really exciting news that's coming up. I can't share right now. But if you're around December 16th, I'm going to have you, it's my guest, come to campus for this
Let's go.
This
Make
reveal.
it y'all inside
That's
scoop inside.
It's gonna be amazing. I think it's gonna really kind of dovetail really well into this conversation that we're having.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that we do, we have a workforce development program where students at a residence, they can come and get a workforce certificate. We have an aviation maintenance program, technology program at Ronald Reagan Airport.
Mm-hmm.
We have our own farm up in Gaithersburg, Maryland. We have a master program, a master grow program. We got 2 PhD programs. We got amazing bachelor programs. We got dynamic master program, and we got a law school.
Doing it.
One university, because we're a university. But without the resources and support from the district to be able to meet the needs of the district, UDC has to play that game of international student, domestic student.
Sure.
Right? But if we were equitably funded, so a statistic for you that's really amazing that when I learned this, I was blown away. On average, the average state university receives about 9% of the state budget.
Okay.
UDC only receives about 1.3, 1.4% of our state budget. So the disparity in funding still exists, right? We always hear this conversation in classes about funding disparities. We experience that, and that dollar amount equates to the level of impact that we can have. Because what we're seeing when we talk about trends, there was this concept of more, and more for less. Now it's smaller but better. And it's
Right.
like, how, right? You know, like you can't, it just logically, it doesn't add up. So if we want to talk about value, quality of education, value for education, real impact of education, we can only have that discussion when we first look at the investment and the resources that are needed in order to deliver. Because with more money, we can bring in the best researchers, the best faculty. We can create faculty development opportunities. We can create balanced for our faculty members. We can develop our physical infrastructure. We can develop our IT infrastructure. That's where that AI piece comes in at.
Sure.
So without money, without the resources, it's going to be hard, and we're going to be making some hard decisions. It's like, typically in the political cycle, you'll hear these politicians, these folks running, saying, do you have to make the decision between your medicine or paying your rent? That same type of concept exists right now in higher education,
Sure.
especially for HBCUs, is where do we give our and our focus, because our dollar can only go so far, right? So the gifts that we're seeing happen as a result of what Mackenzie Scott and Blue Meridian are doing, they are amazing, because what these presidents realize is, wow, finally I can do some of the things that I've been wanting to do that can create more impact, because they are already creating dynamic impact. But with the resources, now they can say, I can do more, I can touch more students, I can provide more opportunities, I can bring in better faculty, I can bring in more faculty, I can have better facilities, I can create stronger partnerships, I can identify and hire more talent, I can cultivate more talent, upskill more talent, right? That's going to be the thing that's going to help our institutions move and drive and move forward. And where people are going to say, wow, think about Morgan. 10 years ago, nobody wanted to go to Morgan.
They doing their thing.
Listen to me.
They doing their
You're
thing.
not going to be able to get into Morgan in a minute.
On their way to R1.
Listen to me. On their way to R1, baby.
On their way to
You know,
R1.
Dr. Wilson is not playing with him. Like, listen to me. And he real quiet. He real chill. He's like, okay, I see you.
He cool.
You're like, I see you. Okay, cool, no problem. But he's a perfect example. Other folks, other presidents that have also received the money, like what Prairie View is doing with PV Cares, right? Providing these wraparound services, and those types of supports are able to come because of two fundamental things: hard decisions and more money. And sometimes to get more money, you have to make hard decisions.
Just tough to do, obviously. But another trend I wanted to talk about, and it kind of talks about what you mentioned when you said you had to do a lot with little or something like that. That was kind of paraphrasing a little bit, but that's what it was. Another trend that I think is important as leaders that we pay attention to is the staffing issue.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah.
It's a staffing issue,
Bro,
so
it's a real thing.
It's a real thing. Listen, I've been here.
It's
I've talked to my colleagues from department to department, from university to university, and It's a tough sector to work in, man. I was reading this article, and I will put all of this stuff in the caption. The Higher Education Human Research Professional Association, they did a survey and found that 50% of higher education employees are somewhat likely, or very likely to be searching for a new job within 12 months, which I think is huge because of the impact that has on the university. I think about how financially, we talking about making money, that's taken away from the university's budget when you're trying to onboard people with staff that is maybe not able to onboard, or they're not even able to do their job because they're focusing on onboarding somebody, which is what something they should do, but it's just priority and kind of juggling multiple things at one time. I think about the impact on the student experience. Like I just sat here today, how I'm even in the seat I am now based on the interaction I had with Dr. Graham Rimwell, who was, I forgot what position he was at that. He was like, I know he was working with the president, but he was an administrator who poured into me outside of a faculty member. Let's say if we have faculty members that's not renewing their contracts or not coming back now, universities are missing classes and they're not able to educate and support students the way that's necessary. So the staffing issue is something that I think is very important, and I hope leaders can find a way to support their staff a little bit better and find ways to retain them just how they have a priority on retaining students.
Man, it's so interesting that you say that around talent retention, because one of the things that I learned very early on in my career is there is a dollar amount to talent acquisition. So when you think about going into a university and you have a director that's a director of no one, and they're responsible for a unit. So this one person is responsible for doing a job of 3 people, and you wonder why that number is at 12 months, because they are burnt out.
Certainly.
Right? So when I don't care how much training you do, one person cannot reasonably and consistently execute at a high level the role of 3 people for a long period of time without burning out. So, that's where we find ourselves, coupled with everything else going in the country, the Great Recession, because a lot of people, especially young professionals, they're tired. And for real, young folks like, listen, man, you got to pay me. They're like, listen, you got to pay me, boy. I am not about to have went to school for 4 years. All this time, all this money.
Right.
And you about to have me do 3 people job?
For pennies.
Listen to me. If my check don't look like it's for 3 people, my boy, listen to me. You losing me. And it's unfortunate, right?
It's super unfortunate.
It's not that younger professionals and even seasoned professionals don't want to do good work. They want what's reasonable. But remember what I said earlier. It comes back to you can't give someone something that you don't have. So what a lot of administrators are grappling with is, yes, I need a strong workforce. Yes, I need people with strong skill set and capacity that can actually execute this work, but I also need money so that I can pay these people livable wages, that I can provide advancement opportunities up the career across the organization. I can provide opportunities for them to earn supplemental income for special projects, or be able to provide them with the COLA consistently, right? So that's where you see this job hopping, because people are like, listen to me, I'm gonna give you 12 months, or I might give you 24, and then I got to go.
I'm out of here.
I got to go because somebody over there, I'm not gonna have to do as much, and I'm gonna get paid double. I'm gone. Right?
Stress is not gonna be as much.
Our parents, they spent 20, 30 years at one company. I don't know a colleague in our age group that has been with their company longer than 10 years. They're like, 10 years? Oh boy, you tripping. They're like, how much money you left on the table?
Right.
Because they 2 years here, 2 years there, 18 months in and out. And there's this new concept. I actually talked to my mentor earlier today, and he was talking to me about this concept called 15 in, 15 out.
15 what?
15 in, 15 months in, 15 months out. That's what people in his circle are talking about. Do 15 months here, 15 months there. And then we can even see as it goes up the chain with how rapid, especially the HBC presidents, are turning over. They're not even through their full first contract.
Or their strategic plans.
Or their own strategic plan. So and think about that. So I have this concept, man, that, like you mentioned earlier during the introduction, as a consultant, I always talk about, like, there's this three-pronged approach to organizational development. It's people, strategy, and operation. Most presidents in universities, especially HBCUs, they focus on their strategic plan. They cast a big vision. Here's what I want to do. Here's where I see the organization going. Here's my aspirational plan. We'll bring together a team, create action steps, KPIs, metrics, to track, to report, and everything. But the other two elements that are critical to make sure that strategy can happen is one, people. You have to be able to assess your organization against your strategy to see, does my organization have the talent capacity right now, as it stands today, to deliver on this strategy that I'm putting together? Can I, with laser accuracy, identify a person with a skill set that can be attached to an objective? Then the second part of that, once you've identified a person for the role, for the objective, is my organizational structure functional, set up to deliver on this strategy with that talent? Because if my procurement isn't tight, I'm gonna have some problems. If my general counsel ain't tight, I'm gonna have some problems. My financial aid ain't tight, I'm gonna have some problems. If my advising team isn't tight, I'm gonna have some problems. So when you look at these three-pronged approach, those three things all require money. You need money for infrastructure, physical and technological. You need money to upskill, reskill, or transition talent. When I say transition, get rid of people. You also need money to be able to actually implement your strategy. That means that you need to be moving around your community, around the country, shaking hands, kissing babies, selling your ideas, selling your concept, creating partnerships. That takes resources. Sure. And the one thing that we are seeing at my own university is how creative can we be with the resources that we have in the climate that we're in, where the federal government can no longer be relied on in the way that it used to be when it comes to funding allocation. When you have a disproportionate allocation of state funds not being appropriately allocated at an equitable level, now we have to be able to figure out across our organization, where can we trim some of the fat? And some of that fat ain't really fat, it's really skin, which is really tough because it's gonna hurt when we have to make cuts. Now, I think Dr. LaGrange gave us a beautiful example, some of the challenges that, she faced with creating PV Cares. But the impact of PV Cares versus that decision, she I stand behind that all day. And we see the benefit. And now her program is being replicated around the country because other presidents see the value in that. And now they see how to balance between making a hard decision to get what you really need so that you can help yourself.
So as you can see, Grady Wright, he's going to be a president one day. If not, he consultant. He going to make sure you situated, your operations, your people. You know what I'm saying?
I consult, but I don't want to be nobody's president.
You know what I'm saying? He could do it. Yeah. He could do it in time.
Oh, man.
But I do want to pivot a little bit as we're talking about everything. That was more of the the state of higher ed. I really want to talk about leadership now as you're giving us this insight. So, man, we've been talking. You know me, right? So as I've been on my personal and professional career, I've ran across a lot of different leaders.
Yep.
Good, bad. At one of my pivotal places, there was a leader who used to always mention. There's no perfect leadership.
Yeah.
And I think I wholeheartedly agree. There is no perfect leader. There's no perfect leadership. However, that always poses the question that there has to be a good or bad. There has to be good and bad leadership there. And I personally think that he said that just to cover up, bad leadership. I do agree there's no perfect leadership. So from your perspective, as somebody who's in leadership, who's worked their way up in higher ed, who is a leader, how would you determine good and bad leadership? And what does that look like for you?
Man, that is such a loaded question, but such a very timely and necessary question. For me, leadership always comes back to a quality, back to accountability. When I was in high school, I was in ROTC. And I'll never forget my sergeant, his name was Sergeant Wiley, Vietnam vet. He used to always tell us, quality reflects leadership. So when you think about quality reflecting leadership and accountability, a good leader is a person that's going to always look in the mirror first and ask themselves, what else could I have done? Did I miss something? Because the bad leader is always going to look out the window to find someone or something else to blame. Now there may be other things that are contributors, but when it comes to leadership, it's that kind of dance that you have to do between decision making. And through a lot of our experiences, earlier in our career, you learn how to make good decisions, what a bad decision looks like. So when you start thinking about the type of leader that you want to be, you have to first know who you are. Right, so
self-aware.
You got to be self-aware. So I'm going to share something that I wrote in my notes, that you can't be effective in your assignment trying to find out or trying to find your identity in your assignment. You've got to know who you are first. You don't. So you need to know who you are before you get busy doing any job or any responsibility that you're tasked with, so that you don't use your busyness to try to discover who you are. That's where most people lose themselves. So when I think about leadership, I've been blessed to work with some amazing self-aware leaders that are self-aware, know how to self-regulate and self-correct, and they're not afraid to get it wrong, and they're not afraid to make the decision. Or my last supervisor, he will always tell our team, when things go well, I give my team the praise. When they go bad, no matter who actually did it, I take the responsibility for it because I assigned it to you. And I should have had the insight and awareness to know that was either too much for you or you weren't ready. So leadership is not one-dimensional. It also requires a level of knowing when not to lean too heavy on the leader of the boss, right? Like, you got to trust the people around you, right? So you got to know how to identify talent, cultivate that talent, and then give that talent the opportunity to go out and flourish and fail forward. Leadership is, other people are going to have totally different perspectives from me.
As you should.
For me, it's about the integrity of the man that I am, knowing who I am before I get into a role, and knowing how to take accountability, and also how to celebrate the people that I'm working with and working side by side, and the people that I'm responsible for leading. For you, what about you? I mean, you also served in a leadership role.
Sure.
Especially running the career center, having been responsible for both staff and even students specifically, right? You probably play a more pivotal role in the leadership pipeline than even somebody at the top of the organization, because you're cultivating young leaders. So, what's your perspective?
I think about a conversation I had when I went to go visit Dr. Abdullah down at Virginia State, right? I asked him the same question because I think it's so important. And it was kind of a straightforward response, but he was just saying that good leadership is about achieving a goal. Regardless of what that goal is, a good leader is going to get that goal accomplished. The nuances around that can be kind of, smoothed over, or it can be different perspectives on how you go about that, but a true leader is going to get that job done. And I agree with that. I also think it's about kind of what you mentioned as far as giving or taking the responsibility when things go south. Yep. I think being a leader is somebody who can really get the best out of the employees. Yep. And I don't want to say that in like a way of being used. I think it's more of a way of inspiring. It helps them be the best version of themselves so they can do the job that they're wanting to do or assigned to do, and get the best product. So if that's having one-on-one meetings with a colleague, if that's incentivizing, another colleague, I think understanding what that is, so that you can get the best out of your employee is what great leadership looks like.
It's like this, because you play football, you appreciate this. I always think about Nick Saban.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he shared was good leadership is like a good coach rather than a boss. It's not do it because I said do it. It's do it because I see the benefit of you doing it. And you're going to see it and benefit from it. Right? When he tell you to don't block like that because you're going to hurt yourself, block like this because you're going to have better leverage. you're going to be able to wrap that player up with more strength and being more sound in your stance and being able to tackle this person in a way. That's leadership. Leadership is not, oh, do it because I'm telling you to do it and don't ask me no questions. It's a good coach. Say, come on, let me show you. Like when I was playing basketball, my coach would get out on the court all the time. Hey, come here. When I tell you go on a triple threat, do this.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you that because it's pretty or because I'm trying to like, oh, get your shit off. Like, no. I'm telling you that because that's going to create space between you and the defender. So when you move, he don't know which way you're going to move. So now you can drive, you can blow past him, you can pump fake him. That's the same thing that leadership is, right? It's here, come here. Let me show you what this looks like. Let me show you how to make that decision between taking money from this program that people are advocating for, but it's not working and there's no analytical data to support it, and put it towards something where we actually see a valuable return. That's good leadership.
And I think that comes over time.
Yep.
That comes with experience. I think on this to piggyback on the sports analogy, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but just because you have a title, just because you're good in research, does not mean you're a good leader.
Absolutely.
It's just like if Michael, I mean, I don't think Michael Jordan ever coached, but he can put up 50 points, Hall of Famer. That does not make you a good coach. And I hope that firms, administrators who are looking to bring on good talent and who are evaluating the talent who is currently leading your institutions, I hope they keep that in mind. Just knowing that because somebody does articles or write, make them a good leader is kind of how they motivate and pour into their team.
And it's important too. Like earlier this semester, we had Dr. Amanda Washington Lockett come to our class. She's actually the executive director for TM, which is a search firm for Thurgood Marshall. And she shared some amazing insights with us around that process and how a search firm sees talent, right?
Yeah.
But when you think about this concept of leadership, it's important for the individual that aspires to leadership to put themselves in the environments where leaders are, people that know what talent is and want and have a desire and a commitment to cultivating that talent. Because to your point, just because you're good at one thing doesn't make you a good leader. And a lot of people that are not good leaders are in leadership positions. And that's
unfortunate.
Bro, it's more than unfortunate because think about what they're doing to not just to their unit, but what they're doing to the institution.
What they doing to if you're the HBCU, what you doing to the black community?
What you doing to the black community? Because you know we'll cut up on you.
You pulling us down.
We gonna cut up on you like like you got me messed up. Like you, bro.
Let's get some alum to come share they perspectives. Okay, cool. But let me get in the weeds a little bit because I do want to share over my time in leadership a little bit more of my philosophy and kind of how I would want to integrate that into strategic planning, fundraising, and even managing resources. So I think I'm grateful to have my time, in this PhD program so far. It has challenged me and, my thought process. So I think that through that process, I really came up with two type of leadership styles that I really want to, extend and be a part of. And that's really being a transformational leader and also a servant leader. So a transformational leader is somebody who inspires employees really to strive beyond their required expectations. And I see myself as somebody who does that. Shout out to my boy Shadura. We're gonna do the Shadura one time. When he said he wants to go to a team where he's gonna make a difference, he's gonna make a change. I see myself as that same type of leader. I don't want to be, and there's different leaders for different situations. There's some leaders that come in, clear house, they move on to the next thing, that's what you run for. I'm a leader who wants to be open-minded, to hear different perspectives, lead with humility, and really practice the self-awareness you mentioned so that I can move the university to the next, the next level. And I think it's also important being a practitioner, somebody who's worked in university, to really highlight the servant leadership style as well. And that's really a style of leadership that prioritizes growth, well-being, and empowerment of employees. Like we mentioned before, there's a financial cost to losing talent. So I want to make sure when, we're talking about leadership and I'm advising different people on leadership, that they are cognizant of how they show up for the people that work for them.
Absolutely.
And they need to continue to do that by communicating in a skillful manner, but also being compassionate and a great collaborator.
Yeah.
Whether it be across campus, university,
Yeah.
in the community, whatever that looks like, they need to be able to do that and make sure they show up specifically for those that they work for. Now I think about, like I said, we talked about strategic. We're going to go in depth a little bit more about strategic planning, fundraising, and resources. One thing that I really enjoy learning about, and I met him, I think you might have met Dr. Anthony Jenkins at Coppin State University,
Yeah.
president. Really solid guy. And they have something that I think that is just like super important. In their strategic plan, they have a goal that is become a great university in which to work. So that's something that they are prioritizing. That's something that they are keeping checks and balancing of. And some of those initiatives would be, or kind of thoughts would be, to improve the employee satisfaction, enhance work conditions, foster continuous professional development and learning for staff. That's the type of leader that I want to be, and something that's going to be so profound that it's in my strategic goal. When I think about fundraising, I think about the strategic partnerships that intentionally impact the betterment of our students in the university. So I think about maybe having we talk about the employees really being stressed, overwhelmed, because they have to do a lot with little.
Yep.
Maybe there's a strategic partnership with Better Help or a mental health program where all my colleagues, all my staff, all my faculty, deans, all the way down to students, they can come there for free. In return, you're gonna get 20 interns. You're gonna get, it could be some type of contractual agreement, but I think making those strategic partnerships with the idea of it being better for my staff is important. And I think as far as managing resources go, I want to approach leadership and approach that part as far as challenging status quo. A lot of times, especially in HBCU culture, we've done it because that's what's done before. And I don't think that's necessarily the right way to go about things if you're trying to be innovative. If you're trying to stay complacent, that's one thing. And I do think it's important to understand what has been done before, to understand the background, but I also think it's important to challenge that, to figure out if this is what's best and if there's a way to do it better in the future. There's a change in age demographics and your employees, like all that stuff goes in mind. Systems change. Technology, you can't continue to be using Scantrons and written tools when there's a digital age right now. So that's something that I would like to just critique it and how I would go about my philosophy.
You know, it's interesting, man. Like, I love this thought, this line of thinking, because it brings me to what we're doing right now at UDC. Our president has coined this year the year of innovation and transformation. That's very key, because in our strategic plan, delivering on the promise, it speaks to us becoming a national model for urban student success. And anyone that understands what it means to become or develop and create a model means that you have to innovate, right? So this idea that you're speaking about where we see this replication and duplication, what other people have done, you can be inspired, but you need to make sure that what you're doing meets the needs of the people that you're serving. Because one of the things that we see this a lot in industry more than we do in higher ed, is this profit over people. But now we're seeing a shift where a lot of these presidents are focused, and we just had him in class and he was talking about how his focus is making sure that ASU is a place where people not just send their kids and not just come to the homecoming, but they want to come and work. They're going to have a good, pleasant, healthy work experience. And that's really important. We don't have to sacrifice our mental health, our emotional health for the sake of a dollar. And it's really important when we talk about good leaders. Good leaders know that in order to get the people that are working for me and working for my organization to care about the things that matter to move this organization forward, I have to first care about them as people. I have to humanitize. I have to care about their humanity. Because the things, if your mom is sick, if your sister's something wrong, you're gonna bring that experience to work. And if I'm insensitive, only caring about where's your report, you showed up 15 minutes late, what about this? And I'm not just disregarding bad behavior or encouraging it, but I'm saying we have to make sure that we acknowledge the humanity, that people matter. The things that matter to them matter. We don't get to separate our personal lives from our work lives. Has to be a beautiful integration and interdependence on both of them. Because when you talk about creating resources, when people have a healthy work environment, healthy work experience, the quality of their work, the productivity of their work is going to increase. For sure. That means more people are going to be aware. We have our three overarching goals for UDC is identity, experience, and partnerships. We're reshaping the way that the public sees us from an identity standpoint. We're creating better experiences through initiatives like our Service Excellence Task Force, which talks about creating an environment where customer service is central to the way that we operate internally and externally. And then partnerships, because we're creating an environment that is healthy and viable, now it's going to be a great place for other companies like Dell and Microsoft and Apple to partner with the university, because they know they're going to get a great experience, because they're hearing it directly from our students. They're hearing it directly from our faculty. They're hearing it from our researchers. They're hearing it from our district partners. They're like, wow, all that's going on over here, what do I need to do to go and become a part of UDC? Because it sounds like that's the place to work. That's the place I need to send my kid. You damn right. Because if you want to have some money when it's time to retire, you're not going to send your kid to these other schools that's you paying all this crazy amount of money, and they're having a bad experience, and they're coming home depressed, and with all this emotional anxiety, and all being triggered in all these ways. But creating a healthy work environment where people can get up, get in their car, and be excited about the place that they're going to work, that's going to change the game for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Man, I appreciate that. Great insight right there. And I want to change the direction a little bit.
Yeah.
It's going to be up your alley.
Let's talk about
It's going to be up your alley as we talk about inclusive excellence through capacity building. So my first question to you is going to be, based on your experience, which indicators tell you that a university work environment is thriving, not just functioning?
The diverse voices, the decision-making process. One of the things that for environments that I've seen that have done extremely well from a success marker are organizations that welcome and invite very, very different perspectives.
Okay.
Because it's not about having a bunch of bobbleheads and a bunch of people that are saying, yes, that's a good idea. You need the people that says, hold up, what else have we done? Have we done that before? Have we considered this? What happens if this? Well, we tried that and that didn't work before. So I want to put that on the radar. So when you have environments that are inclusive of different voices, whether that's male, female, non-gender conforming, more seasoned professionals, younger professionals, then you're going to be able to take all of those perspectives and come to the most rational, healthy decision that is intentionally inclusive of diverse perspectives that can help you get to a great sound outcome, especially when data analytics are involved and you are making this decision based on data-informed discussions when it comes to trying to make a final decision. Yeah, because Inclusion Man has done a really great job at. When he came in, he brought in a slew of women, and it's necessary. Black women have been leading the charge for so long, but they haven't always had the opportunity for advance.
He provided those.
And he provided those opportunities.
Intentionally.
And very intentionally.
It's good.
And we are seeing the success of our organization move forward, because now they're not just being put in interim positions, right? Don't play with them. Don't put them in an interim position. Give them an opportunity to prove that they got the skill set and the talent to move the organization forward. Because if they're good to be an interim, they're good enough to be in a permanent position. So pay them what you want.
That's a bar right there. And I just want to let y'all know, we do love and support black women.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? We had to just take a quick pause and say, shout out to y'all.
Shout out to
we
the
see
black
y'all. We support y'all,
Yeah.
But no, I do appreciate that
Yeah.
initiative. I do appreciate him being intentional about that.
Yep.
And I'm glad you all are seeing benefits from that.
Yep.
I think from perspective I'm thinking about, will be more of the resources allocated and what those resources look like as they support faculty and staff, as they support different student groups.
Yep.
That shows me that you are really intentional about what you care about. And you're going through, you talked about accountability, you're going through with these different initiatives, programs, policies that make this change, and it's not a one-off. So I think that's something for me that's important. Another thing I think about, I mean, this is kind of like a little bigger, I guess. I think about as far as if a university is thriving, I think about revenue generation. Is the endowment growing, right? Because we need money to continue to invest in and provide resources. Mm-hmm. I think about the decisions and the achievements that are in alignment with the school's mission and vision.
Yeah.
If you are not doing what you said you're going to do, then for me, you're not really thriving. You are just functioning. Mm-hmm. Again, staff satisfaction, turnover is something I think about when we are trying to figure out if a university is, thriving.
So I'm gonna challenge you there, my bro, because I'll say this: it's absolutely critical to understand the complexity of leadership. We're running an institution. It is not cut and dry. It is not 4 or 5 people sitting in a room just saying, are we going to do that, yes or no? Are we going to do that, yes or no? There are very heavy decisions that have to be weighed when you talk about resource allocation, when you talk about the success of certain programs, when you're talking about the introduction of new programs, when you think about being able to identify faculty talent, being able to create faculty development opportunities, when you talk about creating research opportunities, right? So when we think about this concept of success of an institution, we got to be mindful and cautious not to only measure success in growth as it pertains to dollars in an endowment, though that is an indicator, it's not the only indicator. Because when you think about our historical mission for HBCU, our mission is to educate the African American community. So by default, we are being successful.
Right, you're already at a...
We're being successful as fuck already. What we're trying to do is accelerate that success, right? And we will be able to accelerate that success and broaden it and within it and, really set down some amazing, deep, strong roots with more resources. Because we know, like we talked about earlier, with more money, we can identify more faculty, we can create more equitable faculty loads. So for professors that want to do hybrid, want to teach in the classroom, that still also need the opportunity to go out and do their research, we can create a balance, right? We can bring in industry experts to help build our infrastructure, both our tech infrastructure as well as our physical infrastructure. We can bring in personnel that can go out and raise money, but because it takes money to go raise money, right? Because somebody got to be on the road, going out, shaking hands, kissing babies, getting checks, right? But so when we think about being successful, you think about a smaller university like I graduated from Florida Memorial, we're successful, but we are a tuition-driven university because we're private. So a lot of our operating dollars is going to be contingent on our ability to be able to recruit. Mm-hmm. But we can't afford to send recruiters to the Bahamas or out to California. So we got to focus on our region, the state of Florida, the county of Miami-Dade, Broward, West Palm Beach. That's what we're doing here at UDC. We're focusing on the District of Columbia, the DMV region, right? Because, all of our institutions are battling to see measures of success against the same things, right? But it's really important that we don't get caught up in this Western concept of this performance-based success measure where if we're hitting enrollment numbers and we're hitting graduation rates, then we're successful. No, we are successful because that little black boy that was from the East Side was able to go to school, get a master's degree, now he's in a PhD program at the only R1 HBCU. That little black boy is Grady, Wright.
Feel me? I heard
so that's success.
That's success.
Right? We're building that bridge to continue to build more momentum, right? And that takes money, right? But we do that one story at a time, and we've been doing it consistently for years. So, I just wanted to, pause for the cause, so that we don't get caught up because it's easy to compare us to other institutions with stronger endowments. And, we even see it in the report that came out a while back with the award that, Morgan got with the $577 million, because of, program duplication and, the disparity in funding, right? But look at what Morgan is able to do now. They're going to be able to do so much more and be a real competitor in this region against all the other institutions, right? because of those dollars that they're receiving. So, like, our measure of success is our ability to be able to stay true to our mission.
We're going to stay on capacity building.
Yeah.
My next question, and final question too, we'll wrap it up on this one, is going to be about how, in a resource-limited environment, how do we creatively build capacity through collaborations, partnerships, and innovations when resources are low. Now, if I think about it, and I'll take a jab at it first. Really, I think about the personal capacity building, which would be like the staff, right? I think about the collective capacity building, which would be more like the culture and things of that nature. When I think about the staff, I think about providing workshop and learning opportunities so they can be aware of maybe some biases they have.
Yeah.
They can learn how to integrate, work well with different age demographics or all the demographics that are present on the university. I think about the different platforms that we can educate our staff on. Whether we are integrating AI, I remember it was a video that we were watching, and we're talking about how leaders, they have so much to do, so many meetings and calendars booked up. They are not able to really operate at their fullest capacity because of how high they are up in the company. So what functionalities, what lessons, what best practices can we share with them?
Yeah.
Whether it's cutting an email down, to give them more time back in their day to fulfill their day.
So that's a beautiful question, and it's interesting. I had a meeting today with a senior colleague, in preparation for a meeting tomorrow to talk about this very point. So when I think about this idea around capacity building, because the way my mind works, I'm always thinking in building blocks. So the first building block is building personal capacity, right? Especially when you think about the organization, the workforce, how do you build your individual capacity, right? Are you self-aware of where your blinders are? What are your blockers, the things that are getting in the way of you being successful? What are the things that you're really, really, really good at that really allow you to shine as a star in the organization? And what do you need to be able to continue to build momentum or stack that for yourself as a person? Then, as a professional, right, as a team contributor, what role do you play on this team, right? If there's a team that's there, what type of projects or initiatives is your team responsible for? How do you contribute? Are you a value add to that team, or are you a disruptor in a negative way? Because you can be a positive disruptor that's keeping everybody on their toes and keeping their thinking fresh, but you also could be a disruptor and being a negative dancer, right? That's important. Then the third prong is organizational capacity. You build your personal capacity, you build your professional capacity, then you build your organizational capacity. Because when you have an entire team thinking against these individual prongs, now you have an organization that is very, very aware of what they can do and what they cannot do. And it's as important to know what you can't do as it is with knowing what you can do. I can play ball, I can hoop, but I'm 5'6". And a dude that's 6'5" that can go, I don't got a chance. I might score 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 points. But listen to me. Not at all.
I think I'll give you buckets.
No, sir. Okay. No, sir. To be continued. But, those 3 are the component parts that I think about when you think about capacity, because when you want to move an organization forward, an organization that has this level of awareness all the way down the organizational chain, and this is from the leader, from the top leader of the organization into the very base level of the workforce, and everybody's thinking against these 3 prongs, then now you got a very self-aware organization that is clear on their capacity. Remember, I talked about the strategy, right? The people, the strategy, the operation. This is going to come down to whether or not your people have the talent and the skill set to deliver on your strategy. Because if they do, now you start seeing your organization build this momentum. And if they don't, then through developing this concept called the individual development plan, the personal capacity builder, you identify, okay, I need to be stronger in my critical analysis. I need to be stronger in my data analytics. How do I share data and support my ideas that's based on evidence and trends, right? I'm not just making blanket statements, just pulling out the air, but it's informed by something, right? And then as a professional, you know, the way that I show up as a learner. I love the process of learning. This is not always about becoming an expert in any particular subject matter, but it is developing a level of serious, sound competency that I've gone from not knowing to strong competency. So when I think about that middle piece, professional capacity showing up on a team, they know that Grady can help us find the information that we need to help inform the decision that we need to make, because I enjoy the learning process. Somebody else may be strong in context, needing to know historically what has been done, both at the organization and in the industry, to bring that to the team to say, hey, this is what's been going on over the last 20, 30 years, and here's why I think this other avenue may be a better avenue than that because of these reasons, right? And then now you've got a strong, thriving organization, and you start building your organizational capacity. It's also going to help you identify and attract stronger talent because they see that you got a strong, self-aware organization. It's going to help you identify stronger partners in the marketplace because now you got a self-aware organization that is aware of what they can do, what they can deliver on. Now you can be trusted because you're honest with yourself. And once you develop those strong partnerships, now you're off to the races.
I mean, in addition to what you're saying, one thing I'm taking away from this is if you're able to really build capacity, you really can change culture.
Absolutely.
And I think that's super important. I think a lot of our institutions, maybe specific to HBCU cultures, because I'm more familiar with those in certain professional regards, is we want to operate a certain way, but we can't do the capacity. And there might be visionaries or leaders who want to propel ourselves that way, but we don't have the capacity to really operate fully.
It's time. So most presidents say, I don't have the time to sit down and assess and actually do the skill set analysis on my organization because I got to hurry up and get this thing done.
They got to win by tomorrow.
I got to win by tomorrow. And it's like, well, you don't even know what you're playing with.
Yeah.
Right? You don't even know, you developing a plan and don't even know your players, right? Like how you writing a playbook and you don't even know if this guy can really shoot or not. Like he's a shooting guard. You know, it's like, this dude's a running back. Like, what are you doing? You know? But it's one of the things that I learned from industry that industry does really, really well, and is being intentional about assessing its actual capacity, especially as it relates to talent, especially in critical roles, right? Like, I couldn't be director of strategic partnerships if I've never developed a partnership, if I've never negotiated,
Fair.
right? And I've never developed a framework and tested the framework and understood data and how to analyze that data and then share out a report on that impact of that data. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't make sense. And you do the organization a disservice, right? And you do the employee a disservice by putting them there and they're not ready. You put them in a holding pattern, or what I like to call an incubator, to help them cultivate and upskill and learn how to develop these skill sets, and then you give them an opportunity to prove efficacy, to have the opportunity to move up.
And I appreciate that. So for y'all looking to build capacity, contact my guy.
Hit me up.
Grady Wright, he's gonna get you together. But in closing though, I do want to go a little off script.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Because it's the second curriculum podcast.
Yeah.
We talked about that term being coined by Dr. Favors.
Yep.
And it really highlights the difference in pedagogy that was taught in the classroom. In addition to what the professors were able to give the students, specifically HBCU culture, that's really unique to that culture. We were talking earlier, there might be an algebra teacher that's talking about, the math, the formulas, but also, especially historically speaking, they might tell you to, go to this bar or that restaurant because of the racial issues going on at that time. So with that theme in mind, we talked about the overall issue, or like the leadership capacity building in the state of higher ed. But what other message underlining that you can give to our viewers that you like to share? And what I want you to do is just give maybe a short nugget or perspective to those who are maybe students, maybe those who are not higher ed, look for best practices. Maybe it's a doctoral student like yourself. Just dealing with life, dealing with the academics, and dealing with, persisting through. What type of piece of advice would you give to them as we close out?
Wow, man, that is, first of all, that's good and it's loaded, bro. I'm just like, damn.
Take your time, take your time. I know.
But that's good, man. So when I think about, first of all, the second curriculum, I had a real second curriculum experience just yesterday with my professor. He shared some feedback on a piece that I did, and it stung bad. I was in my feelings for real. But I was like, damn.
Yeah.
But then he came back and he contextualized it as being a part of not just this PhD process, but a part of what it means to be a scholar. That you always have to be prepared for critique. And critique is always difficult, right? When you put in the time and the energy to develop something, to research a piece or develop a piece, you're putting forward your best foot. You're hoping that it meets the standard. And clearly I didn't meet the standard, and I had to swallow that and put my pride to the side and be able to receive that feedback, knowing that there is no malicious intent there.
Sure, right.
The intent is to help me develop and become a scholar, and strong enough scholar where I can receive this criticism and this critique in a way where it doesn't feel so personal, but it's actually to help cultivate my talent. So I appreciate that. So to the student, I would say look for opportunities for leadership, because those opportunities for leadership, especially in student organizations, is going to do a few things. It's going to help you be able to learn how to develop a platform that you believe in, that you stand behind. You're going to learn how to develop a team of people and be committed to holding other people accountable, along with yourself. And it's going to help you understand how challenging it is to be in leadership, because a lot of people mistake leadership for this fun, fancy, just exciting thing, and it's really, really hard. For the professional, I would say don't stay in rooms that's too small for you. I think over the last few years, what we've seen is this awakening of young professionals realizing that they've outgrown a space, and a lot of them feel a way about transitioning. Transition is necessary. If you don't change them jeans when they get a little tight,
hey,
you're gonna be hurt, man.
You gotta get that tight space.
You gotta get out that tight space. You gotta move on. And then for the PhD student, man, is really just lean into the experience. I got a little note on my bathroom mirror that just says enjoy the process.
Enjoy the process.
Enjoy the process. Like, not trying to be such in a rush to hurry up and get to the finish line, but really sitting in the moment, enjoying each course discussion, each writing assignment, each feedback moment, because in that process, I'm learning and I'm growing. And even for myself, I am growing out of the old me and developing and expanding into the new Grady. Those are some of my top of mind thoughts around like just knowing how to continue to move and grow.
Man, well, I appreciate that.
Anytime, bro. I got you.
Future Dr. Wright, aka Grady Wright. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast today. Thank you for coming through.
Yes, sir.
This platform really invites transparency, so I'm glad that you were able to be transparent about your story, your professional insight, and really your leadership vision.
Absolutely.
To all our supporters out there, thank you for tuning in.